Hello, hello. See, look, all nervous already. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? This is another episode of the Dr. Will Show where we have the conversations that inform, entertain, and empower educators to be the change. I am your host, Dr. Will, and I am here with Drea Alphonso. How are you doing, Drea?
I'm good. It's Friday.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we got paid. So it's a good Friday. It's a good Friday on that one. The show or you will watch. You may notice that I am with a celebrity today. If you've been watching the Google Suite app show, you will see someone who looks very familiar with you. So, Drea, will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Drea, and I'm currently on our Google for Education team as a program manager working with school districts to help get technology into the classroom. And one thing that you might know about Google is we do our 20% time. So a side project that I've been working on is being a host of the G Suite show. So it's been a fun opportunity to talk about ways that we use the different Google tools in the classroom, but also kind of every day. I really like to talk about the calendar features of the G Suite tools just because it keeps me very organized. So I like to take advantage of that type of stuff. And excited to be on the Dr. Will's podcast, on his famous podcast. So yeah, excited to talk with you about what I've been doing in tech, some of the lessons learned, and what's next.
Awesome. So what drew you to technology, and how have you been able to find and carve out your own path at Google?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I was kind of thinking about when did I exactly think about wanting to work in the tech space? And my mom actually worked at Sun Microsystems. I won't tell her age, but she worked at Sun Microsystems at one point in time. And I remember her taking me to take your kids to work day at Sun in Menlo Park. So kind of technology has always been around me once I really come to think about it. And working at Google, it's something that's almost has come full circle for our family as well too. So as I talked about, tech was always something that was around me, but I really got interested in the tech space during my super senior year at Loyola Marymount in Los Angeles. That's where I did my undergrad. And I got my degree in biology, and we took this, it was the first year that I offered it, but it was a course on computer science and biology. So kind of combining bioinformatics and biological databases and just kind of the intersection of science and computer science. It was something I was really interested in. We did research papers, we did research symposiums on some of the work that we were doing, but it was my last year at LMU. So I was just I'm interested in but what can I do with this? So I just kind of, didn't know what to do. So I just kind of left that interest on the table. But prior to Google, I worked on the Obama campaign in Philadelphia as a field organizer. And that's where we actually use a lot of the various Google apps to help us keep track of just stuff that we were doing in the field in terms of phone calls, knocking on doors, and then just kind of seeing the power of the tools as they were in my hands. I was just Google is the next place I got to be. So it wasn't until I had the technology actually in front of me and actually working with it was I inspired to make a career out of it. So that's really what drew me to technology and what ultimately drew me to Google was just kind of having that firsthand experience with how powerful technology can be. Really reflective in terms of what was done in the campaign and on the field and how to use data to really push a movement forward. And kind of finding my own path at Google, I think is just a matter of taking advantage of the opportunities that were in front of me, but really getting connected with people that were on teams that I was interested in learning more about, and that one being our education team. And what's great about that is that for me, not only do I get that technology piece, but I also get that piece of being able to do something that makes me feel good, in terms of bringing technology into the classroom and empowering students, but also engaging and empowering teachers as well. It kind of gives you that little good feeling as well too, that you're doing something that's impactful. So that's something I've been very passionate about as well too, and just taking advantage of even projects outside of my core role, like the G Suite show. It's something that's actually has helped me with my public speaking, being in front of the camera. So always looking for different things within Google that I'm interested in, but all the things that will challenge me as well.
So, we all have heard these wonderful, amazing stories about Google, and I know that they have these different networks and groups that people can join and be a part of. One thing that, of course, we have heard is the Black Googlers network. Can you tell me a little more about it and maybe some of the work that they may be doing in the community to bring technology to young people?
Yeah, so the Black Googler Network is just one of the many employee resource groups that we do have. So we'll have our Women Googler Network, we'll have our Asian Googler Network, Hispanic Googler Network. So there's a host of different employee resource groups that we can get tapped into. With the Black Googler Network, one of the things that I've tried to do is just with any of the different community service opportunities or volunteer opportunities that we have to just be a part of those types of events. A lot of those are centered around coding in the community. How do we bring those types of workshops? So it's really important that for me, going back into the community and bringing more awareness to the technology and how to enter the technology fields as well too. So we do a lot of more of those coding workshops, and even outside of the Black Googler Network, Google as a whole, we're, as a company, as an organization, really dedicated to ensuring that the next generation of students, next generation of community are really involved in what's happening with tech and really helping to build that pipeline. So some of the work that the team is doing on some of the things like Code Next, we've set up Code Next labs in places like Oakland and in New York that you can read more about that as well, where we're actually going into the community and setting up these labs as a way to bring technology into the community and not expecting them to know where to go or how to navigate or in terms of taking advantage of those opportunities. So really kind of going into the community and making sure that that we're building awareness in terms of how younger students, how communities can really get involved in tech as well too. And with a network like the Black Googler Network is just, for me, it's just important to stay connected with my peers, but to also do great things in the community as well too. And it's very fortunate to be at a place like Google that that's important, and that's kind of put at the spotlight as well.
Cool. If people have read, your bio or follow you on Twitter, they see that you're doing this thing with Google. You're also writing for the sports.
Oh, yes.
I didn't know you had that in you, so I was checking it out. But what are some of the rules of success you live by?
Yeah. So there's a few. I kind of wrote down kind of like three things that I think are important. Number one, kind of as you mentioned, kind of with the sports thing, I know people talk about, you reinvent yourself in new ways and try to kind of take advantage of that. But I really more so think of it as a way to kind of like rediscover what you're passionate about. I think those things are always there, but I think, you might get caught up in your career where you don't take a moment to really explore those things. And I played sports in high school. I've been an avid sports fan for the longest. So wanted to just take an opportunity to actually explore that. So I have to give a shout out to my friend who runs the Sports Fan Journal. That's who I've been writing for. And he just, said, hey, write something and we'll see if we can get it out there. And it's something I've challenged myself to do once a month. To just get an article out there. But it's just a great opportunity for me to still explore what I'm passionate about. But I'm also talking about sports and tech. So that tech piece is always there as well too. So that's definitely one thing, kind of rediscovering what you're passionate about and making sure that you're following it, even if it's not something that you necessarily get paid for at first. I think the rewards are definitely important to make sure that you're aligning yourself with things that you're passionate about. And something else that I think is important as well too is like, don't get too comfortable in anything, especially within your career. Because I think at times you're kind of coasting, you're comfortable. I think that's when you get a little complacent as well too. So I think not getting too comfortable and really challenging yourself to do new things, I think is something that's very important, even within your career as well, to make sure that you're challenging yourself to learn about a new product, learn about a new team. So just encourage folks to, in your career, what have you, just to not get too comfortable, but challenge yourself to find something new, learn a new skill as you're going along. And one of the last things that I think is super important, and they all kind of tie together, is the importance of networking, mentorship, and even advocacy within your kind of your career circle as well. There's an interesting panel that I attended where we talked about these things and talked about the differences as well too. For networking, for me, I think it's, being visible within your community. I think is definitely important to make those connections. And when we talk about mentoring, it's someone that you can learn from. So it's not necessarily someone that is senior to you, but is someone that can be your peer, that can help you navigate any of your different career situations, or just being able to provide different points of references is super important. So that's what I learned on this panel, but also having someone that's an advocate for you as well too, and someone that might have a direct say in the decisions that might affect your career. So I think it's really important that when you're thinking about being successful in your career, for example, is really thinking about how you're networking, who you're networking with, but making sure that you're also building those relationships for mentorship and for advocacy as well too, because I think that's super important as you're looking to kind of build your own career path as well too. And my thing is, I was always like, good work that would get you far, but I think it's more so staying connected, building that network, and reaching out to people for mentorship, I think is equally important as well.
So when you hear the word, you hear the echo?
No, I don't.
Oh, I hear. Hopefully it's not it won't be in the broadcast. But when you hear the word ownership, what comes to mind, and how important is it for people of color to create our own opportunities?
Yeah. So when I hear the word ownership, for me, I think that means kind of going after something, being hungry for success, and really you really have to make your own path. And that was something that I didn't really understand until really starting my career in corporate. And what they said was, one thing is that you have to own your career and make your career what you want it to be. And I think that just means going after, like, taking advantage of those opportunities, not being nervous to reach out to people. If you hear no, that's okay. Just go on to the next opportunity. So I really think ownership, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, is about being hungry, and just going after whatever it is that you're passionate about or that you're interested in. And I think for people of color in this space, I think that's equally important as well. If you see kind of the diversity numbers from various organizations, their numbers are low. So I think it's very important for us we have to take ownership of our career, and making sure that we continue to develop professionally, whether that's training we need to take advantage of, that we're building those networks, that we are reaching out for mentors. So I think taking ownership is that you have to definitely be more proactive, and you have to put a lot more work into owning your career. So when you say ownership, that's what I really related to, is like owning your career, owning your path, being proactive about it, but being hungry and going for success as well too. And I think that also ties in with the part of not getting too comfortable, because I think when you're too comfortable, you kind of get a little complacent. But when you're uncomfortable, I think that's when you work hard to make sure that that you're taking advantage of the resources that are around you to kind of really help catapult you to a level that you want to be at. So I think ownership, it's not the easiest kind of concept to grasp. Again, it's something that I understood a few years being in the corporate space, but I definitely think it's something that you have to be hungry for, and that you just have to kind of get after it.
Awesome. So what are the professional and informal networks for people of color within the tech industry? And you just mentioned finding a mentor. How does one begin to find a mentor that could help them, help guide them along the way?
Right. That's a good question. I really think it starts with knowing the people around you and who, certain expertise that you might value, or certain careers that you see that you want to eventually lead into as well too. So I think it's really looking at the people around you in terms of finding a mentor and finding those that that you admire what they're doing and so forth. And it really just starts with those informal types of emails or those informal kind of conversations where you're saying, hey, would love to learn more about what you're working on, how you got into this role. So I think it's something that starts, it's not something that has to be formal. It's something that actually starts very casually as well too. So I think starting with just reaching out to people is the first good. I think that's always kind of like the tough starting point. You're kind of thinking to yourself, what if they say no? Once if they never get back to me? But you just have to kind of reach out to folks and reach out to them again. People are busy, so if they don't respond to you the first email, just be persistent and follow up with them as well too. So I think it really just starts with reaching out to people that you're interested in what they're working on, and building that relationship, I think, is just the first start there. So again, mentorship is not something that typically happens formally, is what I've come across. It's something that definitely happens informally and casually. And it's not only learning about their role, but building that relationship with that person as someone that you can trust and someone that you can go to for any type of career advice. So I really think is assessing the people that are around you and how what you can learn from them, but also how you can benefit each other as well too. And some of the more informal networks, tech networks that I belong to or that I follow as well too. I know specifically within education, there's the EduColor hashtag, that community group that I try to follow and stay connected. There's also another group online, People of Color in Tech, that I try to also stay connected, because they highlight a lot of great people that are doing other things within the tech world beyond just the programming or the computer science, but really highlighting, again, people of color in tech that are working on some cool things and have some interesting roles that they've been a part of. And I think for me, having those informal networks or having those networks are super important. So one of my former Google colleagues that I used to work with, she started this community called Black Tech Women, and you can follow them at Black Tech Women, and working with her to essentially build this community of Black women that are in tech, and thinking about what are ways that we can continue to develop Black women that are in tech, how we can get them to stay connected, and how we can bring more awareness to the different events and conferences that are happening in the area. And one cool thing that we have been doing is we have a Medium, a page where we're asking Black women that are in tech to check out these events, check out these tech conferences, and let us know what that looks like from a Black woman's perspective. Because a lot of times we don't hear the Black women's voice when it comes to tech conferences and tech spaces. So really allowing each other to have a space where we can tell the experience from our voice. So I feel that's something that's been very important in tech, but also important too is making sure that we are providing a community that's really empowering the Black woman that's currently in tech. So really thinking about ways to continue that career development. So it's not just about bringing in new pipeline, but it's more so about supporting and retaining the Black woman talent that's currently in tech right now. So that's something that I've also, in terms of having those networks, I definitely think is something important, and something that I've been trying to do in addition to the 9-to-5 and the sports writing as well too. So again, having those networks, having those professional connections are really important, and something that I'm trying to work on as well.
Okay, so now I'm going to throw something out there at you.
Okay.
So I'm just a huge when I like to go and watch a lot of podcasts and talks and interviews and things that sort of inspire me and going and different thoughts of success and the hustle. And I at Google, they're called Talks at Google.
Mm-hmm.
Where they invite people in.
Right.
What are those talks like?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess from that experience, once you are there, or how does that information go from being there to that information now sort of being applied to either personal areas or areas in the workplace?
Yeah. So I think the talks at Google are, the talks just span so many topics. I think there was a topic on like agriculture and kind of gardening and things like that, all the way down to, things like diversity and inclusion. I think for me, one of the more recent talks, so we have our talks at Google and we also have our authors at Google. So some of those are pretty synonymous. And for me, there means so many things that are happening with that. I really just try to take advantage of the ones that I'm personally interested in. So one of the ones that we had recently, actually this week, Marcus Thompson, he's a Bay Area sports writer. He actually came to Google to talk about his book called Golden that he's written about Steph Curry and kind of his rise as, one of the top athletes in the NBA. So I think at Google, it's such a great place where it's, it doesn't have to all be like tech related, but it's things outside of tech that are interesting to learn about as well too. So I think with some of the talks that we do have, sometimes those are opened up externally, but I think it's really just an opportunity for Googlers to just kind of take in more insights from things that are happening outside of the tech world as well. And I believe on Twitter, we might have a talks at Google page or authors at Google Twitter page to stay connected with as well too, because we definitely post some updates there in terms of the different speakers and authors and talks that have come by. Sometimes it's hard to take advantage of those because there's not enough hours in the workday. And we actually do some work at Google. We don't always just ride the Google bikes around campus and stuff like that. We actually do a lot of hard work as well. So sometimes it's tough to take advantage of those opportunities, but a lot of those are recorded as well too, but there's nothing like being in person. So for those few talks that I have been to, I try to make sure, or that I have been interested in, I try to make sure that I definitely check those out in person.
Awesome. I just had to throw it out there because when I watched them, and as you said, they span the gamut of everything.
Right, exactly.
And when I've seen some, and I go, wow, this is awesome with the authors, and I've seen chefs there. So I'm like, this is some great stuff going on.
So in terms of, have you been able to like follow? There's like a talks at Google page, or how?
Yeah, because they do have that Google page
or the Twitter, yeah,
and then on YouTube as well. So I've joined there. So I mean, what YouTube is, I get, everything. Based upon what I watched, stuff will just pop up being recommendations.
Right. Yeah.
So that was really awesome. So again, shout out to you, YouTube, for recommending my podcast under a leadership topic, and on the same line. Yeah. Oprah was on that same line. Oh. So thank you for.
You coming up? Yeah.
I want to thank y'all for that. So. That was very happy to me. I had to tweet that out. I took a picture, tweeted it out, said, look, look at your boy. Right. So from you being at Google and you're meeting amazing people, you're doing awesome work. What are some of the lessons you've learned that you will take with you into future opportunities?
Yeah, I think I alluded to some of those, but I think the biggest thing is just, it's cliche and everyone talks about this, but it's really just following what you're passionate about. For me, always passionate about technology, but it didn't resurface until, after college or just a few years ago when I did get the job at Google. So not to say you follow your passion and boom, you're going to land in that opportunity right away, but definitely don't lose sight of what it is that you are passionate about. And for me too, with the sports writing that I've been doing on the side, sports writing, I give credit to all the sports writers out there. That's not an easy thing to do. And I'm just getting started. But for me, it's been cool that I'm challenging myself to do something new and, just getting started. So I think there's two things. I think number one, or there's a few things. I think number one is following what you're passionate about. And again, it might not lead you to that dream job or that dream role right away, but keep working at it because it definitely will. And because I mentioned too, it's not about reinventing yourself, I don't think, but it's more so about rediscovering things that you find yourself committed to or dedicated to. And And then another important thing that in terms of lessons learned that I'll take into future opportunities, I just think kind of that networking and mentoring piece is so important. I know it's something that I was so uncomfortable doing. I hate putting myself out there, but it was interesting. So one of my mentors that I've had probably since college, I met him. He's a former graduate of LMU, and I met him at one of our African American alumni receptions events back in Los Angeles. This might have been 7-8 years ago. I've just aged myself, but that's okay. And it was funny because my mom was at this event. It was open up to families, and my mom was at this event with me, and I'm very introverted. So I kind of, I just kind of kept to myself a little bit. And she was just like, you need to go talk to that man. Like, he's doing great things in the Bay Area. Like, go get connected to him. So I went up to him and I said, oh, hey, my mom says I should talk to you. So that was like our introduction as like someone that I wanted to network with. But it was funny. So we had lunch not too long ago. And he was saying, like, I'll never forget, you came up to me and said, your mom said that you should talk to me. And that's how kind of our mentorship had started. So it's someone that I go to pretty frequently for career advice. So I don't recommend anyone go up to their mentor and says, my mom told me to talk to you, but just to kind of give a little story in terms of mentoring is not an easy thing to do, but it's something that's so worthwhile. Like, you meet a lot of great people, but you also have people that you can bounce off career ideas, or if you're in a situation, or if you're stuck in your career, these are great people to go to. They've kind of navigated this type of things before. So that's why I think it's very important, that mentoring and network piece. And that's something that in terms of in future opportunities, I'll definitely make sure that I take advantage of, because it's also, mentors will open up those future opportunities as well too. So definitely that networking and mentoring piece is really critical and important. I wish there was like a lesson or a course on mentoring 101. There probably is. I need to research that.
Awesome. So as you've said, you are a program manager for education. Where do you see K-12 education going, and what role does technology play in shifting our thoughts about the possibilities that exist within teaching and learning?
Yeah, so I think within education, I think what I've been seeing is that students are taking more ownership of their learning and what they want to learn about. I know our Jamie Cassip, who's our chief EDU evangelist, he talks a lot about, not asking students what they want to be when they grow up, but more so what problems do they want to solve. And I think with technology being so open, that students just have this wealth of information and resources in front of them to do a lot of great and cool things. And I think with how technology is opening up, I think just in terms of the careers that are available with that. And I think of something like sports, like students today, like if they want to be in sports, they don't have to just be the athlete. Like they can be, a production engineer for sports broadcasting, or they can do coding for sports teams that look at data and analytics to help player improvement or help their team improvement and things like that. So I just see technology of course, technology is touching every aspect of life almost, that is just opening up so many different types of careers that we can't even imagine today. When I was in college, Google for Education wasn't even a thing. I don't think Chromebooks were even invented either at that time. So it's just seeing how technology just really changes what the type of careers that students are going into. I think it's really important to have students kind of leading their own type of learning and kind of leading what they're passionate about as well too. So lucky for me, I mean, it would have been awesome if I would have known that sports and tech was a thing, but luckily for me, it's starting to kind of manifest a lot more as well too. But I think with education, it's so exciting, but it's still a little bit scary as well too, because we don't exactly know how it's going to change with the flux of technology. But that's what makes it cool and exciting as well too, is that because it's changing, we don't know what it's going to look like. You can invent it to be what you want to be as well too. So I think that's the one that's definitely the exciting thing about education, is the new technology that students are using, but that it really allows them to explore, some crazy far out careers that we might not have never known existed. The self-driving car, students can be working on the self-driving car. They can be working on Project Loon. So there's a host of different far out crazy ideas and careers that students can be exploring now. I mean, what do you see? I know with your work in education, kind of what do you see the possibilities as?
I love it. And I love it for self-directed learning. I love technology for kids actually producing content, for creating, displaying their sort of mastery of knowledge in different ways outside of a worksheet,
right,
or research paper, even though, that skill is still needed, very much needed in writing. Mm-hmm. But kids can have a blog,
mm-hmm.
Or kids can do a podcast. Kids can do a lot of different things, build websites, Google sites. I'm so glad the drag and drop is so beautiful now. Yes. But there's a lot of things that, students can do, and not to mention the collaborative piece mm-hmm. Of it. And I don't, people may say, oh, it's a Google commercial now, but what I love about Google Docs,
it's something that students expect now. If you put something in front of them, they can't work with each other easily. They're gonna be like, what is this? This is like outdated kind of thing. So it's the way that students and teachers are working now, and students just expect those kind of things to happen now.
Well, it's definitely our district. We are a Google Labs district, and we have over 3,000 Chrome devices. And so that whole collaboration thing is just part of our DNA.
Right.
And the fact that I can start on something, I can be in a parking lot and start on something on my phone, get to my office, get on the desktop, do some more work, and then get somewhere else, go back home, and now I'm on a Chromebook and finish it.
Right.
So, that sort of portability, accessibility in terms of being device agnostic is fantastic and amazing to me. And I'm hoping that when we talk about being collaborative and students taking ownership and creating and producing, becomes a place where kids are solving problems, right, and not just being lectured to. Mm-hmm. About something in a history class. Why not pick something relevant now and have students come up with solutions to solve that problem, and maybe create a product or a PSA or right, a campaign or something to address it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay. See y'all. Okay. About to get me started. It's not my day. It's Drea Day. Yeah. So before we go, what is your call to action for those students who are like, I would love to work at a tech company?
Yeah.
I find it exciting, but I can't program, or I don't have an interest or a passion for programming, but I understand they do hire people who don't do other work outside of programming.
Right.
How should they to work in a tech company and I guess position themselves as well to be looked upon at you?
Yeah, so I think with tech companies today, you absolutely don't have to be a program manager a programmer or a computer engineer. I mean, I definitely did not have that type of experience. But I think it's just with technology, I mean, as I mentioned, it's going to be touching every aspect of everything. So I think, I mean, something I just kind of thought about this, like something that I would recommend is maybe checking out the jobs that are available on our google.com/jobs website and kind of seeing what are the different roles that are there and what am I most interested in. I mean, there's everything from marketing to sales, to diversity and inclusion efforts that we're running as well too. But even thinking about not only Google, but YouTube has tons of cool roles that are happening right now, really helping to build our platforms for our creators. So I know for the kids, YouTube is like the coolest thing, but think about that you can actually work at YouTube, work with some of your favorite creators. So there's a lot of things that can be done that you're not really thinking about. I mean, Instagram, you can work at Instagram, you can work at Facebook. So thinking about the platforms that students are using today and how they can make a career out of it. I mean, for me, that's how it started. I was using the Google tools, and then I said, hey, I want to work at Google. So I think is just putting the different technology in front of the students, I think is just equally important because they can absolutely make a career out of that. Again, that's how kind of I got my start at Google. So I really just challenge students, maybe more of like the high school students, to kind of think about looking at some of these tech companies, look at the jobs that they have online and figure out how you can kind of position yourself to have one of these, or working with your teachers to figure out like, hey, I want to do more website design. Like, what are some projects that'll help me align so I can kind of build sites, so I can do websites, so I can design things for special projects and things like that. I think for me, that's the kind of route that I would go. It's just really seeing what's available out there right now and figuring out how you can start to kind of infuse some of those skills and learning how to do some of those things in the projects that students are working on right now. And I know one thing that we do every year is our Google Science Fair, where you see kids from across the globe, like they're pushing forward some very impressive work. So I may be kind of seeing what these students are doing as well too. So I'm learning more about the science fair projects that have been done and seeing the type of work that students are doing, so they can kind of get a sense of, hey, here's Google caliber type of work coming from these students. Here's kind of how I need to approach this as well too. So I think it's a matter of just kind of researching jobs that are out there and just slowly start building kind of your portfolio as part of that as well too, like doing more website design, for example, doing more with the G Suite tools as well. So I think it's not only students, but teachers can kind of do that as well too, and supporting students to think about what are some of their future tech careers that they want to be a part of. But definitely coding is a wonderful thing to know, wonderful language to know. It's almost like that's kind of the next language that students will need to know. But definitely encourage students to kind of definitely think about coding. You don't have to know advanced coding, but just kind of getting a sense of the basics of it, I think, is important as well too. And definitely something I wish I would have taken a little bit more advantage of as well.
Awesome. Thank you again for being a guest on the podcast. It was awesome to have you here.
Thank you for the invite. I appreciate that. This was fun.
Well, I had a great time as well. And the people, you know how I do it over here. This is going to be on my blog. Go ahead and subscribe. It's going to be on LinkedIn, Facebook, SoundCloud, and Twitter. So as always, people, invest in you, EDU. Peace.
Peace.